It's Carolina.
Carolina. Well, hello.
Hi,
Welcome
Brad.
to my office.
Hi, thank you for doing this interview.
I'm happy to do this.
So I have 30 questions to ask you. So
Okay.
let's get right into it.
Let's do that.
How are you today?
I'm fabulous, Carolina. As soon as I see you so I feel great. All is good. So thank you for asking.
How do you start your day?
Well, I start my day usually. I sit down after I get out of bed, and I go right to my computer. And I resist the temptation to look at emails and to check the scores of the Chicago White Sox game the night before. First thing I do every day is I go to a website called BibleGateway.com, and they have a verse of the day. And I always think it's helpful for me to start my day with a verse from Scripture. Not all of them speak to me the same way, but once I start my day hearing a word from the Lord, I think everything else kind of falls into place appropriately there. So that's the first thing I do each day is get a word from the Lord.
When did you join GPC?
I joined Greendale People's Church December 1st of 2020. It was about a year ago, almost to the day, that I interviewed first with the search committee. I only sent out one resume. I really wasn't looking for a new position. I had a lot of fun work in New Bedford. I was respected and comfortable, you might say, but I was wandering, surfing the internet, and I happened to see that there was a posting for a designated term pastor at Greendale People's Church in Worcester. And I thought, well, I'm not going to send out any more than one resume, so I sent one here. And Nancy White replied. I interviewed, and before long, I met with the governing board, and then came on board officially, sat in this chair for the first time on December 1st of 2020.
That's awesome. So tell us, what do pastors do during the week?
Well, let me show you some of the things that we do. Let's go this way. One of the things I like to do, I didn't think I would, I kind of binge watch the security system here. So I kind of see who's coming and going. I get distracted by that quite a bit, but I understand Dave Raphael is also a binge watcher of our security system. So that's one of the things I do this week. I kind of try to keep this place safe. And then I have the pleasure during the week of being with people such as Marianne. Marianne is shy today. She's a little bit reserved. But Marianne's always good for a laugh, and it's fun to come into the church and hear some of the things that are going on. And then I'll do other things during the week. Come to the chapel every once in a while and get a lay of the land. We're alternating our services between the sanctuary and the chapel, so I come in here and start to think about the service coming for the week. But otherwise, what a pastor does during the week is whatever comes along. You can't really foresee anything. You just go right ahead and try to have a nice schedule and plan your work. It's going to be blown to smithereens usually by Monday or Tuesday. So you take what comes pretty much when you're a pastor.
I see. And how much time does it take to prepare a sermon?
Oh, well, preparing a sermon, for some guys, from what I understand, for some ministers, they can sit down and hammer out things on a computer in maybe one or two sittings. That's certainly not the case for me. I usually take a look at the passage for the week, and then it just kind of goes through my head. I chew on it, digest it, think about it, pray about it. And if you want to know in terms of how many hours that is, my goodness, it's the better part of the week. So it could be 12 hours or so of work, start to finish. Never finished until until I say the benediction on Sunday, because things just continue to come to me.
What is the hardest part about pastoral ministry?
The hardest part about pastoral ministry are the number of expectations that come with the job. Everybody wants something different. And I don't really know what people want sometimes until I ask. Maybe the hardest part that people don't understand is mind reading. I don't read minds, so I don't always know what people want. The hardest part is knowing what exactly I can do best for any number of given people. You know, if somebody wants their drain cleared out, they call the plumber. If they want to get a haircut or have their hair done, they make an appointment with the hairdresser. For some reason, people think that the pastor knows when they want something, and if the pastor doesn't initiate, people are often disappointed. So the hardest part is that people don't often meet me halfway and understand that their phone calls out as easily as it takes calls in.
Do you ever have doubts about becoming a pastor?
Once I got started on the road into ministry, going to seminary, answering the call to be a preacher, there were times when I thought maybe God was calling me more into teaching, to be a theology professor in a seminary. But by the time I got to seminary, I already had 3 kids and a wife, and I didn't have time to dilly-dally around in schools and so forth. So I needed to get out into the world. But there was a time when I was thinking maybe I would be best suited to teach theology in a seminary.
And what is the best part of being a pastor?
The best part of being a pastor, for me, has to do with the people. The people that I've met along the way have been the most pleasant part of ministry, being with people in the most significant moments of life, to be with people who have received a diagnosis that's pretty grim, and to be able to accompany them through it is very significant and very meaningful. And then sometimes to get the feedback from the people when I'm told that what I'm doing is impacting them. I remember there was a man named Clarence at the church in Michigan. His very last words to me were not something like, well, thank you for helping me or doing this for me. He simply said, thank you for always preaching Jesus. And I thought, that's always stuck with me. Well, that's what really meant a lot to him. And so to get that kind of feedback from people really keeps me going. That's the best part, the people part.
And what do you do for fun?
Well, for fun, one of the things that I do a lot is exercise. I can't do some of the exercises that I used to do years ago because I've had both of my hips replaced. I used to run a lot. I ran distance races and so forth. Before that, I was a sprinter. But exercise, and then I don't know, take walks, that kind of thing. I don't watch a lot of TV. My wife does, and so I listen to what she's watching usually, but I don't always sit still very easily, so I don't watch a lot of TV. But I would say things that keep me active is fun, and then being with my children and grandchildren is fun too. So here's the garden room, as you can see. Let's head this way up toward the sanctuary. A lot of signs in GPC about where to go in the sanctuary. Nevertheless, I still get lost every once in a while. So, as you can see, sanctuary, 3rd floor, sanctuary, 3rd level, just in case you don't know the difference between a floor and a level.
So, what advice can you give people to get closer to God?
Don't try so hard. Most people think that to get close to God, you have to really grit your teeth and try hard. Probably that's the worst thing you can do. Don't try so hard. And trust yourself in the process. people often think that you have to be an expert at this in order to be in relationship with God. Don't try so hard, and you know what? You're probably doing just fine, so trust yourself.
And aside the Bible, what other book has most influenced your life?
Oh, I would say the book that's most influenced me are a lot of books by a sociologist and theologian named Peter Berger. He taught at Harvard, he taught at all kinds of different places. But he wrote a book called The Precarious Vision. A sociologist looks at the Christian faith. And I would say that book has probably had more impact on me than anything, because his whole method of going about trying to understand the Christian faith is from the standpoint of how people believe together. And a lot of the way people believe together is filled with a lot of kind of baloney. And he likes to cut through the baloney of it. And so that book, Precarious Vision by Peter Berger.
When did you realize you were called to serve God?
I think during a time in my late 20s when I really hadn't been attending church, had drifted away from God, and things weren't going terribly well in my life. And I was going through a time of anxiety and depression, and would start to listen to sermons on the radio that were available on the Christian radio station. And they really lifted me. And I realized that maybe this would be something God's calling me to do. And I really believe that it was out of that experience that I felt called into ministry, to be a preacher.
Yeah. Who is your favorite theologian and why?
My favorite theologian at the moment, I've had a lot of them over the years, would probably be, he's deceased now, Gustav Wingren. He is a Swedish theologian, Lutheran theologian. And what I like about him is he connects a lot of different theologians from the past and brings them together in a way that's meaningful for contemporary society. He goes all the way back to the 3rd century to one of his favorite theologians and one of mine, Irenaeus of Lyon, who wrote against all the different things that were disintegrating the Christian faith and brought it all together. A big Martin Luther scholar he was, and Martin Luther's always been very influential to me as well. But a man named Gustav Wingren.
How do you balance your personal and family life with work?
I am very obedient to my wife's orders and commands, and I say, yes, dear, if that's what you would like to do, that's what we will do. And I find that not only does that keep me out of trouble, but it keeps me balanced. I have to let go sometimes of my need to kind of feel as though I'm in control of preparation for a sermon, or I have to let go of some of the concerns that are going on in the church that are circling in my head. So I follow my wife's lead faithfully, and I find that keeps me balanced.
You already say that you exercise. Do you also meditate?
Let's go this way. You'll find the more you know me, the more active my brain is. And so meditation doesn't come easy for me, but every once in a while I'm able to kind of slow down and stop and just take stock of how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, and then to question what I'm thinking. So it's not a daily, regular practice of meditation, but I do every once in a while have to stop myself and say, so what's really going on in your head? What's going on? Why are these emotions stirring up in you? It's more a matter of self-reflection, but I exercise every day.
And what do you like about Greendale People's Church?
The characters, the interesting people. I've always been fascinated by people. Now I know that being a preacher, people think I'm a real talker, talk. Because that's what they see on Sunday morning. But people will find that when it's not Sunday morning, I'm a very good listener, and I love to hear people's stories. And the stories that I've heard from people here are fascinating. To hear about their growing up in this neighborhood in Worcester and some of their life experiences. So I'm enjoying the stories, and from some wonderful people.
In your opinion, what makes a great worship service?
What makes a good worship service is joy. People are enjoying being there. That's one of the things that I've tried to impose, and I don't think people have resisted. Passing the peace, for example. When I stand up in the front and watch the church passing the peace, people are smiling, they're laughing, they're enjoying. And then when they return to their seats to continue the service, they're in a much better state of mind. So joy is really important, and joy usually comes from this interpersonal connection that we have with each other. It's important, I think, to the service.
When do you feel God's presence?
When I am reading good theology, because good theology really pertains to God. One thing I'm very disturbed by in the present day is how, for so many people, their Christian faith has become ideological. It's driven by political points of view, by societal perspectives, and so forth. And I think that's leading us astray. I think we need to return to God, and a good theologian who really writes from the standpoint of a perspective on exploring and explaining God, I feel closest to God in.
Now let's get a little bit more personal.
Uh-oh.
Can you describe yourself in 3 words?
I would say comical. To me, exercise is important. Obviously, 3 square meals a day and a good night's sleep is important. But I've discovered if I'm not laughing that there's something really wrong. So comical. I would say sometimes people tell me it critically. Sometimes people will say that they admire it, that I'm kind of intellectual. Some people don't like that, some people do. And I would say as time passes, more and more patient.
Great. And what can you tell 25-year-old Doug?
When I saw that question earlier, I was stumped, and to some extent I still am, because when hindsight, we look back and we think of all the mistakes we made along the way, and if only I had done things different. But for one thing for sure is that all these things that we think are our worst case scenarios, and they torment us and they haunt us in our heads, almost never come true. And even when bad things happen, that doesn't mean that one is doomed. So I would tell 25-year-old Doug, don't worry about all those worst case scenarios that you're concocting in your head. They're not going to happen. Just enjoy life and relax and just go with it. And when things don't go your way, God has a way of making things good out of what was a not so good situation.
And what would be your advice for the youth?
There's no doubt that at this stage of life, and I look back and I see children, the most important thing is become a good person. Really become. Nowadays, the parents will try to force kids into learning a sport and being real good at it because they think it's going to get the child a scholarship, or they'll drive their kids to develop a certain skill or talent, when fundamentally the best thing anybody can do is to become a better person. Sometimes I drive around and I see billboards or I see signs that will say, be kind, or treat one another well, or whatever. And I'm thinking, Why do we need signs to tell us what we should know already? It's because we have not emphasized the character that really matters in people. And what will get any child through life is to become a good person and learn how to treat other people well. I think that's more important than all of those skills.
How many children and grandchildren do you have?
3 children, 6 grandchildren. Each of my 3 children has 2 children. So 3 and 6.
Do you have any hidden talent that you can show us, maybe?
Ooh, the only hidden talent that I can think of is, and it goes back to, this would have been probably the early 1970s. There was this instrumental song. There are no words to it, and it was kind of synthesized electric music, and it was called Hot Buttered Popcorn. Well, I learned how to do that without electrical equipment, and it goes. And it goes something like that. So that's my hidden talent that nobody knew until now that I had.
That's cool. Baseball or football?
Both. But football I enjoy watching more.
Favorite song?
My favorite song of all time, probably Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain by Willie Nelson.
Favorite movie?
My favorite movie, anything Tom Hanks, pretty much. But I like, of all Tom Hanks movies, there's one, probably not as well known as others, called The Road to Perdition, my favorite movie.
Favorite place?
My favorite place would probably be a dirt biking trail in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan that I used to go on my days off when I was pastoring up there, out in the middle of nowhere. If I had fallen off my motorcycle and hurt myself, I probably would still be there lying. But it was just out in the middle of nowhere, and it was a beautiful scene.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
What are 3 things you can't live without?
At this stage, probably chocolate ice cream. Probably I wouldn't be the same without my daily exercise. And probably I would be all out of sorts if I didn't have my weekly errand running session with my wife, Gail.
And we finally arrived to the last question. What would you like to be remembered for?
If I could be remembered for anything, it was the passion that I have for God that maybe in some small way I conveyed through my demeanor and through my weekly proclamation from the pulpit.
Well, this is it. Thank you very much for doing 30 questions with GPC.
Well, thank you for following me around, Carolina.
See you around.
Okay, bye now.